Hello, the Screencast is to walk students through the varying interpretation summative for the Vietnam War. You will find it in the classwork section of the U.S. History classroom. When you open it up, you will see a document that looks like this, where you have level 3 and level 4 criteria for meeting the indicator for this particular unit on the Vietnam War. So first, you have to analyze and critique varying interpretations of people, issues, or events, and explain how evidence is used to support different interpretations. So step 1, under the bold here, where it says describe key people, you would describe 2 historic people from the Vietnam era in 2 sentences. Basically, you're saying who they were and what did they do. In the second part, you're recognizing and explaining similarities and differences between each interpretation. Again, that would be each interpretation of the Vietnam War. So you already recognize the differences. Here, you want to explain the similarities and why the similarities and differences exist. So as far as the interpretations are concerned, remember, you want to go back to, I'm going to walk you through it, this assignment here, what was the Vietnam War about? We read a PDF, and then we did an exercise in class together that walked through the 3 interpretations. And I'm just going to open up this document to show students. Here are the 3 interpretations that this author presented in the article. One interpretation was that the Vietnam War was a good and noble fight in an effort to stop communism. A second interpretation was that it was a sad effort by the United States to stop a foreign civil war, the idea being that they probably shouldn't have been involved in the Civil War to begin with. And the last was that it was a foreign power's effort, again, this would be the United States being the foreign power, to stop Vietnam's struggle for freedom. And then we walked through how evidence was used to support the different interpretations. So let's go back to the summative here. And here you're basically going to write why the similarities and differences exist in these boxes here. Next, making connections between specific evidence and how it supports each interpretation. You're going to identify key points of 2 of the interpretations. Again, going back to this document from the assignments on what was the Vietnam War about, you're basically just going to be looking at this evidence that we talked about in class, choosing 2 of the interpretations, whichever 2 you want, and putting them in here on this document that's part of the summative. Lastly, making a logical judgment about the validity of the interpretations. Students are basically being asked to think on their feet. Say if you agree with each interpretation and explain why or why not. Just simply say, yes, I agree with the interpretation, and here's why. Here's the most compelling argument that the author makes that makes me agree with this interpretation. Or I do not agree with the interpretation, and here's why. The evidence that the author presents, you're going to make the argument that you find that that evidence is shaky, or that there should be more evidence in order to convince you that that is a valid argument or logical judgment about the interpretation. Lastly, for the level 4, draw 2 specific conclusions about how differing viewpoints regarding a major historical person, issue, or event impacted the country. And again, we're talking about the historical event known as the Vietnam War. So the question, answering this question, how did the 2 interpretations of the war create conflict within the United States? Think about those who supported the war as well as those who opposed it. And then in 3 sentences, you're basically going to explain how the country ended up sort of arguing with one another, people who were protesting against the war and people who were in favor of the United States involved in the Vietnam War. Hopefully that was a thorough explanation of what you need to do. Please email me if you have any questions. Take care.